The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
Go ahead.
Give me your 3, 2, 1, Tom.
3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Minnesota Soccer Podcast. We are live and in Technicolor, or whatever Technicolor is for radio terms. I'm David Naylor, Nic Hallett, Tom Schreier on the other end. Gentlemen, how is your Sunday evening going?
It's good for me. I got done covering a not exciting Twins series, and but yeah, otherwise I'm chipper.
I'm with and near and in sight of Tom Schreier, so you can imagine.
The feeling is mutual. We're a little upset. You're just over the Skype waves or whatever.
We're just
Skypes
looking
are.
at each other, smiling.
Smiling? Are there tender glances being exchanged?
All the time.
You're missing it out. You're missing out.
I'm
a safe
sad
distance.
to miss it.
Maybe you're a safe distance. Maybe that's the right way to put it.
I can feel the connection between you two across the waves of the internet.
It's in a Skype connection.
Nic Hallett, I've heard that you were serenading Tom with Katy Perry before I called
Yes.
in. What song were you serenading him with?
All of her greatest hits.
No, do you remember the specific song though? What were you singing?
I thought that was a Taylor Swift song. This is my fight song.
Fight song is Katy Perry, right?
This is my fight song.
Or am I off on that?
I have no idea. Taylor Swift was wearing the shirt that said that on it, and then I started singing it.
Oh,
So
Taylor.
here we are. But we should probably talk about soccer because anyone who downloaded this is like, dude, when are these guys?
Well, I just wanted to get a little bit of you singing some Katy Perry, Taylor Swift as the intro to the podcast because we don't have introduction music yet, so like we can just install that as our open from now on. Is that good, Tom?
Yeah, we're good. We're good with that.
Okay, sounds good. So Minnesota United played a game on Saturday night, which was last night at the time of this recording. It was late. It got real late. So I was actually tracking to see if this would happen. It was a later kickoff for this game at 9:40 Central Time than any of their other games that have been played on the West Coast have been in Central Time this year.
Yeah,
due to a whole lot of lightning and even more rain. I know Nick and I both publicly thought on Twitter that this game was not going to happen last night. Nick, you saw some of the videos. What were your thoughts like thinking about that as a soccer player of going out to play in that?
Yeah, well, that was, I mean, the weather was one thing. Obviously, they said there was lightning in the area, and then the videos that we saw from Dallas were of torrential downpour. And so my thought was like, of course, the weather can pass, but the videos of the rain showed that, obviously that field was going to be drenched. I just assumed that would become one of the main problems. But honestly, from when they kicked off and played, that the Toyota Stadium must have amazing drainage because it didn't look like it had poured and the ball wasn't slow or anything because of it. Wasn't any like puddles at all. I mean, yeah, so obviously the stadium is state of the art and it worked out well.
It is a soccer only stadium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you think maybe they have an advantage over somewhere else that may...
Yeah, their drainage must have just been on point.
It must just be astounding because the amount of rain that we saw on some of the videos coming from Dallas last night, the stadium's Twitter account was putting up pretty regular updates and like video and weather stuff from what they had going on. And there was just one video they had from probably on top of the press box that was astounding amounts of rain. And it made me a little bit glad, moving to one of the big stories that happened even before this game, that Darwin Quintero did not play in this game, because that's the kind of atmosphere that can breed injuries on a soccer field. So what did you think, Nick, when you heard that Darwin Quintero would not play in this game?
Obviously the first moment is like a little bit of surprise, but second immediate thought is like United's going to be up against it. A lot of times this team, we just know for a fact when this team's on the road they're up against it. But to be without easily your best player, that's just not only is that an inherent problem to be without your most skilled player, but there's like this second effect of just like him literally being gone, like just his functionality of what he does for the team, like that's almost like a second thing in and of itself, and you're missing that too, because there's someone on the team who's kind of like Darwin Quintero light, right? Like you miss Andrew Wiggins, or you miss Jeff Teague in the Wolves. You can play Tyus. There might be a drop off, but you can play Tyus, and that's maybe not the best comparison, but I think you get what I'm saying. And so there's no one to replace Darwin with who's even a Darwin light, and that's the real issue. Not to mention he's one of the best players in the MLS.
Tom, I promise I will not go down the Jeff Teague, Tyus Jones.
I thought, Naylor sitting there being like, 5-man offense, and I knew he had. I know he had the spreadsheet.
Like I said, I knew.
Tom has heard me make my argument about those two specific players many times.
Yeah, Ricky Rubio.
Another day. Go listen to old episodes of Wolves Wired if you want to hear those takes.
Right. But you made a point. He's unparalleled almost in the league.
Just for fun, because I think I enjoy talking Wolves with you guys.
Yeah.
Would Shabazz in place of Wiggins be a better comparison for what I was going for? Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Even to any great Wiggins doubters, that's
there you go.
Maximum light.
There you go. That's my point. That's my point there.
Yeah. So my thought, I agreed with you that they were in pretty, you go to a very good team at home in Dallas, albeit one that's lost 2 games in a row, including a loss to San Jose, who are really awful. And you have a weakened lineup, not only missing Darwin, but also, as we talked about last week, missing Colin Warner and Francisco Calvo. And by virtue of missing those two, having to switch formations to a 4-3-3 that this team really hasn't played that much in about 2.5 months at this point. So the systemic problems with Darwin's loss were, as Nick said, not just in the player himself, but in the effect that it has on the rest of the team. But at the same time, I kind of have the thought that it's like we've optimistically said that this team is still in the playoff race. This loss is, if not the final nail in the coffin, probably about third to last. And
it's among the nails, yes.
Yeah, it is among the final nails in the coffin. And Darwin's health and security for 2019 matters more than maybe playing him when he's a little bit hurt, maybe he's a little bit under the weather, especially in the conditions that happened in Dallas. I pretty quickly talked myself into being just fine with him missing a game to take care of himself and take care of whatever he needs to be okay for the long run. And that's, you hate to think about that when this team is in a playoff race, but there is an element of reality that it's like his future and Minnesota United's future, not only through the end of this season, but moving forward in the next season, is absolutely critical, as we saw on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had people ask me on Twitter why this happened or why Heath didn't play him, and I think it was the word on the street is that he was dealing with a calf injury coming into this game. So
I believe that's what the broadcast reported.
Yeah, and so it wasn't that it was like a radical move by Adrian to pull Darwin. It was Darwin just couldn't really go. So,
and it's one of those things that, like a calf injury or any kind of leg injury for a player that relies on as much on his speed as he does, is going to just hamper him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, soccer players in general, right? You're using the everything below the waist pretty extensively. So, yeah, no, it made sense.
So, looking at the game, did you agree with the starting 11 that Adrian Heath chose to field?
It was interesting. I could see what he was going for. I think he clearly wanted to try to counter, and we can talk about that because I don't know about his tactical decision making in that regard fully, but you can see what he's going for. Miguel on one side, Pang up on one side. Pang up's definitely fresh. Miguel can run for days, and then you have Angelo with them, and so hopefully you can spring out, sit in a low block defensive shield, and then spring out through those three, snag one, and then defend like your lives depend on it. I think I liked that he gave Pang up a chance, who reportedly has been doing really well in practice, but it just felt like, man, you're really putting a lot of weight on his shoulders. That said, I thought he was one of the team's best performers on the night. I thought his dribbling looked exceptional. I thought he made a case that he should be playing more. but but I think that's too. I think it was too much for Miguel. I'm not as bullish on Miguel's ability as you are or other fans of United are, and that's fair enough. But I just don't. I think he needs a lot around him to be able to create, and putting him as one of the focal attackers in a 4-3-3 is. I don't think it's a recipe for great results, and that I think that showed through last night. But I think Pangop, honestly, Pangop was a microcosm of what I have a problem with in this game. Is like he showed great potential. I don't know why he's not finding the field more, and I don't know why Adrian isn't giving his offense more of a foundation to build off of, and more of a springboard to get after people. I mean, you go into FC Dallas, and I get it. You want to sit in. They're one of the best teams in the league. The way you're on the road, you'd love even just to scrape by with 1 point. So one of the best ways to do that is just defend in a low block and try to play really conservatively. But it's just I don't know. It's just so wet blanket. It's just so weak. Like it was clear it wasn't really going to work. And I don't think Minnesota United has ever proved to be a team that can do that. Right? Yes, that's a legitimate soccer strategy. Sit in, absorb pressure, try to counter, and steal points, steal a win, steal a draw. But this team has never shown the ability to sit and defend well. So I don't think you can. Therefore, it makes that strategy illegitimate from a Minnesota United perspective. So I struggle to see what Adrian's going for there.
And now I read the story that was, I think it was a stringer in the Strib, and I know you had some quotes, Naylor, in your story. Do you think Heath goes, what else do you expect me to do? Like, I know Quintero, I have all these injuries. He always complains about the skill on the team anyways. What do you guys think of that? I mean, does he just go, look, that's the option I have. I go into my turtle shell.
Naylor, did you see the broadcast in his post-game interview?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he referenced that he was missing his 5 best players.
Yeah, and I think I saw that quote.
Yeah.
I didn't watch.
Well, and I thought it was interesting that he chose to also call out Finlay and Molino, which
I did see that.
What, he did?
Yeah, I saw a quote
that's
like
what
that.
he said by his 5 most important players. Is he was at Jamie Watson asked him what can you do when you're missing Calvo and Quintero and Warner, and he's like, yeah, what about Ethan Finlay? What about Kevin Molino? We've been missing guys this whole season.
Yeah.
We just got to adapt and make do with it.
Yeah, he wasn't calling them out. I thought you guys were saying that he called those 2 out.
No.
He
said it by name.
He added them onto the list of, we're missing this too. So I'm not sure it's like, his vibe felt like that's not really an excuse for this.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point to answering Tom's question. It's like, even in this situation, not only is he bringing up the guys he's missing immediately, he's bringing up 2 guys he's been missing the entire season. So it speaks to Tom was questioning where does Heath's perspective on this, and it's him throwing his arms up and being like,
Koopa
"What do you want?
Going to shell.
What do you want me to do about it?
Yeah,
like I need more." And he's been saying that constantly. And on one level, it's tough because on one level he's got legitimate points on that. His roster is lackluster in certain ways for sure. On the other, it's like, dude, at some point you have to coach.
Well, and it's not the only team.
And get results.
What do you guys know offhand? What is how injured are the United compared to other teams in the MLS?
I mean, not exorbitantly different. So, like I said, my question, I don't like watching the FC Dallas game. It's like, dude, you went up with a super flimsy strategy, and they swatted it away like immediately, and it was obvious that they were going to be able to do that. And your team has never shown that it can hold out and defend for long stretches. Like, we know that's the weakness of your team. Like, we all know it. And so why get at? I don't know. I think you got to get after it more, and you got to give your attacking players a better springboard.
I want to touch on Pangop because I thought that he had good elements to his game, and the thing that I was thinking throughout this is, the last time I saw Pangop play was in the friendly that United played against Deportivo Saprissa, and he was the best player in that game. Which, I mean, second-tier squads, both sides, but he had the goal. He did what needed to be done, and he showed, the dribbling game, the kind of guile that he played with. The thing that looked to be perhaps why we haven't seen him more, at least in a starting role, is he didn't look like he was 100% fit. He was pulled off at 60 minutes, and tracking back for him, there were several moments where on the broadcast, his guy was the one that was getting open for a Dallas chance, a Dallas shot that was saved by Bobby Shuttleworth, and these things that you have. So on the defensive side of things, it looked like he wasn't taking care of his responsibilities or wasn't fit enough to take care of his responsibilities. And that's the question for me, as far as maybe that's why we haven't seen him, is because if he's not fit enough to play 90 minutes of an MLS game, which he's clearly not when he was off at 60 and time to go, that might have something to do with it. Maybe we should be seeing him more off the bench just to get him game time, like you see with Owundi getting time in Charlotte. We see with Omsberg getting loaned out, Manley getting loaned out. Maybe he should have gotten that treatment earlier in the season so he could have been closer to match fit. But I don't know. I had questions about that. I was extremely glad to see Romario Ibarra come on for him in the 60th minute to just bring something different to the side. I don't know. Like, I was impressed with some elements of Pangop's game, but I also thought there were some pretty obvious problems with what he did.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he should be. Yeah, it did seem like match fitness was a bit of an issue, and the second goal was definitely scored on his side. He didn't get back at time. No one, frankly, pressured the ball, which, again, it was schoolboy defending from
It was
United.
pretty pathetic on that second goal.
It really was. It really was, because dude, he had so much time. He had so much time. Soccer is such an easy game when you have time on the ball, and literally it was comical how much time each Dallas player had in that lead up, like 3 full seconds, which is just insane. And yeah, they just passed it around easily. That guy got it outside the box. I think it was Diaz is his name. And he had no one even step to him. Tyrone Mears didn't know if he should step. Boxall didn't know if he should step. Pangop came late, but didn't even hustle, and then kind of stopped. And then he just cuts in and shoots. And so unfair to Bobby Shuttleworth.
It was a great shot, to be fair, but
Absolutely.
Just no pressure.
Absolutely. No, it's stunning, and it's just like these guys are professional soccer players, and I mean, a perfect contrast is watch the Premier League, like that would never happen. And so what's the difference? And honestly, match fitness seems to be a huge thing. Like Tyrone,
Wait, what?
I know, I don't get it either. Tyrone Mears has played in the Premier League. Like it's clearly not. It's not the ability. Like it's. I don't know why, but dude, MLS players just aren't even remotely as fit as Premier League players, and I don't understand why that is.
While we're talking about the goals, what was your perspective on the events of the first Dallas goal? The call, the review process, the actual shot attempt itself, if you can call it that? What was your thought going through that whole time?
It was bizarre. I thought it was at first. I thought it was clearly offsides, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be more interested to hear your thoughts, because I was kind of just. I thought the whole thing was bizarre.
The thing that threw me is I can't imagine why Michael Boxall was heading it that way. Like, if it was indeed Boxall that hit the initial header from the cross, as it appeared to be on the most recent replays that we got, why is he ever heading it that way? I guess it might have been his momentum, but that looked like a very intentional set header right at his goal, which that's not something you see from Boxall. That just feels completely wrong, which I think I said this on Twitter last night. It's not that the call was wrong, because the replays that happened, it looked like Boxall hit it, which gets rid of the offside, which means that the finish is good, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I would just say, from my playing experience, I would just say that, yeah, it's one of those things where, things happen so fast in that moment. We've all been there, right? You're playing a sport, and, you legitimately told your body to do something, and it just, doesn't listen, the 1 out of, the 98 times, And that's just one of those things. You're jumping, you're dealing with other physical contact, and ball gets there quicker than you expect, so you just like do a move, any type of motion ends up being the wrong motion. Those things do just happen from time to time. So I think Boxall has proven that he is formidable in the air. He's good at winning aerial duels, and those things do happen from time to time.
I would like. I don't know. I wish I'd been able to ask Boxall about what he felt like happened there, because that's just one of those things that it's like visually I don't understand what happened, but it happened, and then it was the goal. I would also like to note, ridiculous initial save on that header by Bobby Shuttleworth.
Yes.
Totally absurd save on the initial hit, whoever it was.
For sure.
When the rebound goes in, you have that sometimes, but he was. It was turning into a Bobby game right up to the end of that first half until the goal went in, and that was the cap on it, and then the replay and the goal just kind of takes the air out of all the sails. Did you see them getting a point from this game at halftime? Going into halftime, 1-0 down after the review, did you see any positive result coming from this game?
And exactly, that's where I'm like frustrated with. I could see where frustration with Adrian would start to foster for other people, because like it didn't look like they could manage it. Like it didn't look like they were going to manage getting out of the first half, and maybe technically you could argue they would have or should have. You know, it's a fluky goal, sure, but it's like, dude, it's not like wow, you guys defended well and then that happened. It was like the dam was always going to break, and going in the second half, you don't change anything. And it's like, okay, dude, like, it's just going to happen again. Like, they're going to create chances. You're seceding possession purposefully. We can see that. And they're going to create chances. So, and now you're trailing. So what exactly are you going for? What is the message you're sending to your team? I just think like I've said before, one of my frustrations with him that I point out, and I don't have a laundry list of things I have just negative things to say about him, but I would say that he does seem to be stubborn and slow to change, and those are the situations where it's like, dude, you have to throw caution to the wind, because, dude, what you're choosing right now isn't working, and I think a lot of people can respect if you go for it and if you try something as opposed to just staying pat, and I don't understand it.
It's one of those things where it feels like Heath. I wish I could. A project I could go back and do this week is to go through United's games this year and see how many times Adrian Heath has missed change of the game within 5 minutes of a goal going in. And
it's like, that's too late.
Because that's like the Pangop change was 5 minutes after the second Dallas goal went in.
Great.
And that is not the first time that has happened this year, where Heath makes a change that feels like it's responding to a goal rather than playing ahead of time, maybe making the change that needs to be changed to prevent that goal from happening in the first place.
Exactly.
It feels like it's responsive, and that doesn't solve problems.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So
no, I'm with you.
Yeah, and so that's a good example, like, you know, statistically, because you're right. That's a trend where it's played out. And last night, it's like, okay, so let me get this straight. Your team didn't look like they could score one goal, not even close. And now that they've conceded the second goal, now that they're down 2, now you're going to change things. You didn't look like you could get 1, but now you're going to change things because you're hoping to get 2? Like, I don't get that. You need to get results. You need wins on the road, not even just draws.
Yeah, they needed 3 points from this game, and they need 3 points from all of their games at this point, and they are not getting them.
Yeah, and I don't understand how he could have any confidence in going defensive and going into a show.
Let's move to a topic that's going to be the end of this game and the opening of our second discussion. What did you think of Angelo Rodriguez's game last night?
I think he obviously had a poor game, but to my kind of right, one of my main points is my frustration with Heath and his tactical decisions, and the one we've been really highlighting has been his defensive decisions, or his lack of lack of substitutions to change things. But my other problem is the way that the team is setting up is not giving the offensive players a great foundation. We talked back when they lost to Seattle because him having the wingback sit back and not even get up in the attack. Like, you're already playing with a 5-back at times, and then you're not even letting the wingbacks get up. Like, that's something we've seen him do. And like in this game, like playing in the 4-3-3, like you're just not. The 3-man midfield is not getting the ball up quickly, and then it's not joining the attack. You're not letting the outside backs get up in this system either. So you're just paying up Angelo and Miguel and whoever of the 3 midfielders decides to join them. That's who you're allowing to attack. You're always going in undermanned. You're always just allowing 4 guys to attack. How do you expect that to do well? Like, not to mention you're missing your leading scorer and your best player. And then you're just going to send 4 jabronis who have like a combined like 6 goals, like do it on their own. One of which your striker hasn't even scored in the MLS yet. Like, I don't understand that at all. And so it's unfair to judge Angelo and these other guys because they're being put in impossible situations.
Yeah, and that was the point that I said last night and put in my recap is I don't think Angelo was as bad as the stats made him look, because the stats looked bad. No shots in 90 minutes, 30% pass completion, just did not look great. But there were so many times in this game where he would get the ball and just be 1-on-5, and he'd do the best he could to get some hold-up play, get some impossibly angled crosses off that I'm still not sure how he escaped enough to get the cross off. But, like, what is he supposed to do? He's either getting the ball with no help or not getting the ball at all. Like,
and again, all of this problem, I'm picturing like, yes, Angelo being on the ball and like you just said, 1-on-5, or who's he going to pass? Who's making a run for him?
There were no runs.
Exactly,
there was nothing.
Exactly. Heath's not allowing anyone to make runs, or at least that's what it appears. Think about when Schuller or Ibsen are on the ball. Who do they have to pass to? There's not multiple runners. There's usually maybe one option, and it's like, that's incredible. I don't know if anyone listening to this podcast right now, or Tom or you, got to watch Chelsea play this weekend, but it was unbelievable. Like, they're constantly making all these different runs, so every time someone's in possession, they have multiple options and good options to pass to. And like, Minnesota United is the antithesis of that. There's no one to pass to, and no one's making any runs. And honestly, again, the problem is it feels like it's Heath choosing that. Not letting his team be creative, not letting them get forward, not letting them push numbers forward. And how can anyone succeed in that? And how can you win games in that? And how can you score with that? And you can't, is the answer.
Because the counterpoint is, in games that Darwin Quintero plays in, we've seen those runs. We've seen attacking movement from Ibsen, from Schuller, from Ibarra, from Calvo, from Kallman on occasion. Like, the runs have been there in those games. So for them to have been as missing might be coming from Heath, might be coming from a lack of confidence in the service of their teammates, it seems like it would be a game plan at this point to just keep numbers back. But as you said, it just does nothing. You lose slowly.
Yeah.
This team is not good enough defensively to be. You talk about Chelsea of today. We talk about like the Chelsea of 4 or 5 years ago and Mourinho's best time there that could just shut the door.
Yeah.
We'll win 1-0. You won't do anything against us the whole game. This team does not have the personnel or the discipline to do that for 90 minutes in the MLS.
Exactly. I love how you phrase that too. Like, because that's what it felt like last night. Heath didn't set up his team to win. He didn't set up his team to get a draw. All he did was set up his team to lose slowly. It's like, dude, like, do us a favor. Get after it and lose right away, right? If you're going to lose to FC Dallas, just lose in the first 15 minutes. Go down 3-0. But freaking go down trying. Like, come on.
Yeah, I would have. If they did that, I could have started writing my recap at 15 minutes instead of at 60 when they went 2-0 down.
Exactly.
So then the necessary counterpoint to said discussions about Angelo Rodriguez's game is Christian Ramirez would not have done any better or looked any better in this game, in this lineup, than Angelo Rodriguez did, and I'd put money on that.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
So it is ridiculous, like totally, absolutely ridiculous to put any kind of Ramirez-Rodriguez comparison in this game to me. Like, sorry, Christian is not going to do anything better in the situation, in the setting he's been. We saw some of that in the early part of this year before Darwin was signed and before Darwin came into this team. Couldn't do anything. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter how good he looked in Los Angeles, in which he looked very good.
No,
he plays in this game instead of Angelo, and it looks the same. The result is the same, and it's ridiculous to think otherwise, in my opinion.
Yeah, any criticism in that regard pointed at this game is completely irrelevant.
I love how, and I think United has brought people who are not necessarily fans of the other Minnesota sports teams, it really engaged them in with this team. But I think it's funny that there is still the mentality of like the Minnesota, the ones that get away, you know, and that like people are so paranoid here that like Ramirez is going to become like a legend, right, in LA or whatever.
Well, and he walks out in his first game for like his first start for LAFC, 2 goals in the first half an hour.
Yeah,
I mean, I know why people thought that too. I totally get the reasoning, especially if you don't know the nuances. But it is super funny.
And here is the best thing to wrap up literally everything we've said in this episode and this discussion is when asked about that, because Christian looked good, as David just said, scored 2 goals in 30 minutes, one of which was spectacular, really, really good
for like
goal.
the new team in LA, right?
Yeah, LAFC.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
And when asked about it, Adrian Heath was like, Adrian Heath, the guy who had a heavy hand in trading him, said, he's like, that doesn't surprise me. We know Christian has that in his game. We know that if he gets service, and I've said, I'm paraphrasing Heath, I've said that if he gets service and if he plays in a good system, he's going to score goals and do really well. To me, hearing Heath say that is like an admittal that his team is not going to provide service to strikers and play well. And it's like, what? What does that mean? Like, what? Who could succeed in your system then? And the one guy who is the guy who can do it all on his own. And that's not sustainable and not okay. Like, I can't believe he would say that. Like, dude, like, what does that say about what you're building or the team that you'll be running? Like, if you can't provide that for someone. And what situation? Look, how does Angelo Rodriguez feel about that? Thanks, dude. You're telling me you're not going to be able to do anything for me. Great. It's stunning.
Yep. So that's what that is. We did not talk as much as we possibly could about Christian Ramirez last week. And I feel that in light of his Los Angeles appearance, it would be good to address his future, at least for this season, as far as what he's going to look like, because he could score a whole bunch of goals.
Nick, your thoughts?
I'm just laughing that, like, when I go on a rant and then, like, David, like, agrees, like, it just tells me that, like, my rant was sufficient. Like, that's
Dude, don't encourage him. Don't encourage him.
You are in fine form today, sir. I do not need to add on to your points. You are on the roll.
Do you have a Christian Ramirez rant, sir?
I mean, I think I kind of gave that, but I mean, yeah, no, Christian. I mean, my point from a Minnesota United perspective in regard to Christian is the rant that I just went on, essentially. Yeah. But again, I've covered Christian for this outlet, for 3.5 years, and he can be an exceptional finisher. And one of the main things I said when he was potentially getting called into the U.S. men's national team was like, dude, this dude could potentially like really fit, because if he plays in a good team, the upside is extraordinary potentially. And yeah, obviously the LA debut at home showed that. And yeah, who knows? Like I said when the trade happened, like I'm rooting for the guy. I hope it goes well.
Well, and the other point that is necessary is that I made this specifically in reference to this game, but I think it's a fair application in all things, is Los Angeles' system is a better fit to make a striker look good, because it turns out Darwin Quintero is real good. Getting passes from Carlos Vela makes a number 9's life real easy.
Yeah. But then that's a good point. But what stands to reason is like, okay, if he's getting teed up by Carlos Vela, why isn't he getting teed up by Darwin? Why can't Minnesota United play in a way that Darwin tees him up? And why can't Minnesota United play in a way that Ibsen's teeing him up? And I think the reflection, Darwin's obviously good enough, so it tells me that the system is maybe at fault, i.e. maybe a Heath problem. And then Ibsen not teeing him up, or Schuller not teeing him up, again, partially system, but partially those guys aren't maybe good enough. Or Colin Warner, whoever's in the midfield. None of those guys are ever getting assists. None of the center mids are ever getting any assists.
Well, and then we enter the mystery box paradigm, because they did get a whole bucket of allocation money in this trade for Christian Ramirez, which that could turn in to the number 6 that this club desperately needs. That could turn into a center mid who is capable of passing to get Angelo Rodriguez 15, 20 goals a year. It could be anything. Or, as this front office has proved in times past, it could be Vadim Demidov.
Yeah. I'm going to just say this now. If Ibsen is in the starting 11 week 1 next year, I'm just going to walk out of the press box, because what are they going for at that point? You can't be relying on a 35-year-old who, frankly, isn't getting it done now. Don't get me wrong, Ibsen, to some degree is a class footballer, but I think, though, obviously he's in the autumn of his career and his best days are behind him, and he could be a nice bonus player, in a good team, but in a team that's just scratching and clawing to be competitive week in and week out, he is not the guy anymore.
Naylor, I'm just visualizing the press box when Nick walks out. Like, where did Nick go? Did he go to the bathroom, or did he leave something in his car? No, he's protesting it.
I think the point Tom's making is that no one would notice if you were gone. It's a little bit rude.
I thought that was the joke he was going to go for, because I think that is apt. I think no one would notice. They'd be like, this seems the same.
Ibsen's on the team 10 years from now, and they're like, why? And they're like, oh, there's reasons.
We have to keep him. He has to be signed for the club for the next 30 years.
Otherwise, Nick will be in the press box.
He just sits there in a suit, smoking a pipe, and you're like, what is this guy doing on the team?
Yeah, what would your reaction be if Minnesota United announced Adrian Heath's removal as head coach of the team, only to hire Ibsen?
Oh my gosh. That would be hilarious. I would just go to every game, because it would be like a car crash all the time. I would want to see everything. I would fly to every game.
Hey-o!
Yeah.
Okay, last thought from last night. Were either of you guys on Twitter during the rain delay?
I was
not.
I was.
If you feel like it, and or listeners, if you feel like it, check the club's official Twitter account for all of the random GIFs that they've never been able to use.
Yeah, I saw some of those.
Including one of Francisco Calvo eating an apple, and no one knows why.
My favorite was the Brent Coleman one where he's playing the guitar.
Is that... So I know baseball players do random stuff in the dugouts all the time, and it's not as common in football, let's say, where they know they're under the public eye. Where do soccer play? Do they do random stuff? Are they quirky, or is it's pretty straight?
There's just not that many delays, and soccer, there's not
there's not
baseball
downtime,
has clubhouses too.
Yeah.
The clubhouse provides a unique environment.
Yeah,
not really that.
But directly to this point, FC Dallas had a very nice locker room video from last night doing the trash can header challenge.
Oh, nice. There you go. Actually, that's a perfect response to Tom's question. Actually.
Which, if you're not familiar, is one guy's in the middle of the locker room, everybody else is sitting around. Yet middle guy heads the ball back and forth to every guy in the room, and the last guy tries to put it in the trash can.
Huh. So you just walk around the locker room heading the ball.
That's awesome.
Yep. It's actually, it's a really cool video when it's done right. A lot of soccer teams have done it over a lot of years, but it's a good trick and a good rain delay gimmick, whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact with this Calvo gift that I'm sitting here watching right now is they had him against the green screen eating an apple and making faces. This isn't like game footage. It's just like they intentionally recorded him eating an apple.
What do you think they were going for?
I don't know.
Oh, I bet I know what it was. You say he's making weird faces?
Yeah, he's pointing at it and looking around weird.
I bet it was to eventually use it and say, how you like them apples?
Oh, good call.
Potentially.
I bet. Especially if the looks he's making are snarky ones.
They're pretty snarky.
Yeah. How you like them apples?
Yeah, there you go. All right, we found a use for it. There you go.
Nice.
So on our last Minnesota United point, I saw a idea on Twitter that came from Jason Davis, who does a soccer show on Sirius XM from 12 to Monday to Friday. Of what did he call it? Soccer jersey bingo, I think it was. Yeah, soccer jersey bingo, in which you make a bingo card with jerseys that you might see at an MLS stadium on a given MLS match day, with your team's jersey as the middle space, the free space, and then other things that you might possibly see out in the stadium as the rest of your bingo card. Nic Hallett and Tom Schreier, what would you put on a Minnesota United game day bingo card?
I'm trying to think. I've been to a few games, although not super recently.
Youth club jersey.
Okay.
Good call.
A lot of the kids.
Vikings jersey.
Yep. Minnesota Twins baseball cap.
Although, is that super common? I'm trying. That was one I thought of, but I was like, I can't remember last time.
I feel like I see those a lot.
Yeah.
So I know I've seen Vikings jersey, U.S. national team jerseys.
Yep. I was just gonna say international soccer jerseys of any sort.
Pick a specific country other than the U.S. that you think you would see.
Brazil.
Costa Rica.
Yep, Costa Rica. Germany. I feel like I see Germany semi-regularly.
I would
England.
go probably Chelsea over Manchester United, but both could go on there.
There's a decent Tottenham supporters club in the cities.
What about Surly Apparel? I feel like Surly has
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Definitely,
sponsored Surly Apparel. That's good.
Definitely Surly stuff. That's a really good point.
And I'm pretty sure I see Vikings apparel more than the other 4 teams. Gophers jersey is another one.
Yeah.
Since they're in the Gophers Stadium, at least for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything Dark Clouds related.
People with
2017 Minnesota United jersey.
Oh, I like that.
People with sleeve tattoos.
Yeah, little hipster crowd. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think in part that's the new stadium should add kind of a culture of its own. It's kind of an odd mix right now, right? With diehards that followed the Loons.
Well, you got the diehards, but you've also got the casual people that are coming out because it's at the stadium.
It's convenient for them.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like next year. It feels like it's going to be pretty universal, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think of when I think of those teams, the scarves and the little. You rarely see the little thing you roll out. It has 2 little handles, and you pull them to the sides.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
banner.
The little banners. I don't know if you see them very much in other sports, and I think that's kind of unique and interesting. Other than that, I mean, it's a good thing. It feels like a sports crowd.
Yeah,
Nic
Hallett, what is the most unique soccer jersey you have seen in the Twin Cities in person?
I mean, it would be one that I own.
Okay.
So
what do you got?
A kid, a really good player that I've coached for 2 years, is actually from Iraq. So they gifted me an Iraq national team jersey not too long ago, and it's
that's pretty sweet,
super unique looking.
That's super sweet.
You never see people rocking a jersey that looks like this. It's green and white. And Freaking, yeah, it's awesome.
I have two. One of which I just saw actually this week at work, which was one of my students at the school I work at had a Croatian national team Luka Modric jersey.
Okay.
In the blue instead of in the red and white check, which I think it was just this summer's World Cup. But it's like, didn't expect to see that on a 6-year-old, but I respect the game.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
And the other one is my friend Paul. Shout out to Paul. Has a Senegal World Cup kit from this year.
Nice.
Which is a very good look.
Those
jerseys are sick.
I almost bought the Nigeria kit, actually.
Yep.
You're not allowed to bring vuvuzelas in, right? That was like a...
No, they banned that.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. That was 2010, right? It was like...
Tom coming in with the 2010 World Cup reference. Keeping things poignant.
So outside of
I think it should be a
moving away
lewd call.
from Minnesota United, since we've already basically done that.
That actually would be awesome. Dude, actually, somehow, against all odds, Tom actually came out with a good idea. At the new stadium, they should give out loon calls, and then that would be part of the atmosphere at Allianz Field.
Great. Sure.
Tom's now like strategizing like how he's going to profit off this. He's going to go there and sell them.
All right. So moving on. Other news within the state of Minnesota soccer. Shout outs to the Minnesota Golden Gopher women's soccer team who started their season today, actually. Or I believe today. They might have played one more game before this, but I know they played today. Had a comeback win in Utah over Utah State, 2-1. And their home opener is on Friday of this week. So shout out to them if, as the Loon soccer season slips away or in this giant gap without a home game, go watch the Gopher women who have their season just beginning right now and would be a good team to watch and throw your support to. Looking across MLS, also in events from today, Josef Martinez of Atlanta United tied the MLS single-season goal-scoring record with 9 games to play.
Is that good? Is that good?
He's having a totally absurd season and run in MLS, and Atlanta are really, really stinking good.
Minnesota United should trade for him. Then we'll see how many goals he scores. Woo! With no service.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Let's see how good he really is. Put him in a Loons jersey.
Martinez scored his 26th today for Atlanta, and you have to figure he's going to break it and could go to and beyond 30. And in other all-time MLS record news, Chris Wondolowski scored a goal today and is now just 4 goals behind Landon Donovan for the MLS all-time scoring lead.
I don't.
Doesn't help that Wando plays for a really atrocious team.
No one wants Wondolowski to get that record. I'm just going to be honest. No one wants him to have that.
People in San Jose do.
Yeah, he is really popular out there.
Nope. People in San Jose are like, nope, I'm more loyal to the U.S. men's national team and the greatest U.S. men's national team player ever, Landon Donovan.
Chris Wondolowski, right.
No, negative. Chris Wondolowski is the opposite of that. Chris Wondolowski's this is just a fact. Chris Wondolowski's most known contribution or lack thereof to the U.S. men's national team is the fact that he missed an open goal against Belgium in the 2014 World Cup that would have sent that game to penalties. Or actually, sorry, he would have won the game for the U.S. In regular time, and he missed an open net. And a lot of people didn't think it was a big deal at the time because they thought he was offsides. Turns out he wasn't offsides, and it would have had U.S. advance against mighty Belgium.
Now that I have Nick angry about soccer results, tell me about what happened to Manchester United this morning.
Woo! You know what? Here's the funniest thing is I haven't even yet watched this game, but I know what the problem is, and his name's Jose Mourinho. And he, dude, frankly, he just needs to go. Like, it's just not a good fit. It hasn't been a good fit. It's frustrating because the front office of Manchester United, namely Ed Woodward, is also a problem and makes bad decisions, like hiring Mourinho, like the purchases that he will and won't make. Look at one of the problems Mourinho has is like, oh, they didn't let me sign another center back. Well, you signed Eric Bailly, you signed Victor Lindelof. Like, dude, these are like mistakes like that you've made too. Like, you have signed 2 center backs. How many center backs do you need us to give you? Dude, don't even. I mean, I could keep going, but Mourinho.
I know you could. That's my favorite part. You've been on a roll today.
It's Jose's fault, dude.
The interesting thing to me, I saw the goals from this game and have read a decent bit about it. It's that their attack seems to have been almost more of a weakness than the defense was, because they just didn't get anything done with Anthony Martial done today. Pogba was ineffective until getting a penalty in the very absolute last minute of the game. Like, they're just not doing the things they should be good at while still being bad at defense.
Well, and it's funny, and again, to take things of this podcast full circle, it's actually a similar problem to what Adrian Heath is doing at this moment in time. And Mourinho does not give his offense the right springboard to go forward. He's got unbelievable amounts of talent going forward. He's got Paul Pogba, one of the world's most expensive players ever. He's got Romelu Lukaku, who has more than 100 goals before he was 24 in the Premier League. You've got Jesse Lingard, who starts for the England national team. You have Anthony Martial, who's started for the France national team. You have Marcus Rashford, who's one of England's very best up-and-coming players. Like, there's no shortage of offensive talent. And I didn't even mention Alexis Sanchez. And he can't get that team to be flowing offensively. It's a crime against humanity, because Sir Alex Ferguson could do that, and no one since has been able to do that, and it's clearly a problem. And Mourinho's not the right fit for United. For what they need, for their philosophy, and yeah, this team should have no offensive problems. And the fact that they do, it has to be on the coach.
This allows me to transition nicely into my next talking point from Twitter today, which is that a rumor placed a certain former Manchester United manager in the neighborhood of the U.S. men's national team job, but it's definitely a rumor. How would you feel about U.S. men's national team head coach David Moyes, Nic Hallett?
I hadn't heard that, so I was like kind of actually anxiously waiting to hear who you're going to say. That's terrible. That would be a travesty. David Moyes is the perfect example of what the U.S. men's national team does not need. Oh, my. Don't do that. Don't do that at all.
You just teed me up for it, and I'm like, I have to put this right here. This is perfect.
Yeah.
I don't think I haven't seen that rumor anywhere, I believe, but I saw it floating around from somewhere today, and I'm like, oh man, please, never, ever.
Oh my gosh, that would just subject us to some of it. Not only would it be a bad fit, but it would subject us to like really boring soccer, and that's the last thing we need.
Oh yeah, it would be terrible to watch.
Yeah, honestly, dude, Thomas Tuchel would be perfect, but he's going to do good things at PSG. So, but we need a coach who. Because the key to this team, especially given that the next World Cup's 4 years away, but given all the young talent that's popping up, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Timothy Weah, all these guys popping up, it's clear that we're going to have some talent. We're going to have young players. We need to find a young player whisperer. That's what this team needs. Again, I mentioned Thomas Tuchel, but someone of that mold, because this team is going to have some potential.
And to truly bring the podcast full circle, while you're talking about players with potential U.S. men's national team call-ups for the fall's schedule, Jeff Ruder of The Athletic reported that Miguel Ibarra is on the shortlist for a men's national team call-up this fall. The first time
on that.
Since 2015.
I'm out on that. I don't like it.
You're a hater.
I'm definitely.
Miguel's gonna kill it.
I'm definitely maybe drinking the haterade on that one, but I'm just gonna own it. That's what's happening. Like
that's fine.
As I just pointed out, right, separate from Miguel, completely subjective analysis, separate from any emotional feelings I have about Miguel or his play. This team is about to be very young and needs to go young, right? Like that's what this team needs to do from the national team's perspective. Miguel's 28. He's not going to be a part of the youth revolution of this team. And frankly, as you could argue to the ends of the earth, the rest of this podcast, how good Miguel is, I don't care what you say, his upside is limited. Could he be a functioning cog in a really good team? Potentially. But that's his absolute upside. He is not a super dynamic talent. And that's just a fact. So those are the reasons that Miguel is calling up to the U.S. men's national team. Good for Miguel. I'll give him some dabs for that. But from a national team perspective, who gives a rip?
He's going to be the most important cog for the U.S. men's national team in 2022.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah. Hater.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
I was negative for a lot of this podcast. I got to get a little bit of my typical optimism in here at the end.
Nick drank the Haterade, breathed some fire.
Nic Hallett.
I slayed that.
Nic Hallett,
y'all
the
know.
Haterade. Do you have any final thoughts before we are done for the evening?
People should, if they're listening to this now, that means they're at the end of the podcast, and they should restart it so they could hear all of my takes again because they were all fire.
Yep.
Oh my God!
Wow. That was all right.
Listen to it backwards.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
You gave the
listen to
secret
it
message.
backwards and hear Nic Hallett talking about how much he loves Manchester City.
Oh God, no.
In like a really scary voice.
Yeah. Tom Schreier, do you have any final thoughts? I hesitate to ask.
Nick got me good. That's too much for me.
Well, as we wrap up, a reminder to, as always, check out our coverage of the team on zonecoverage.com and all of your other Minnesota sports on there. Vikings preseason, injuries, tragedy, Twins, monotony.
They got young. Gonsalves got called up. Cole Stewart's up. At least if you want to, these players.
Cole Stewart
heard
was bad yesterday.
Yeah, Cole Stewart may not be great, but Hallett's got to roll.
Be cool if we wrote about a good baseball team like the St. Louis Cardinals.
Right.
Just saying. Yep, Timberwolves preseason, Lynx postseason. The Lynx are currently in the midst of their final game of the regular season and have their postseason match, which is going to be pretty hype, as they will play in a single elimination best-of-1 game in Los Angeles against the Sparks as a rematch of the 2017 WNBA Finals. Best of one, winner take all, first round of the playoffs on Tuesday. So that is a game you're going to want to watch because that's going to be a doozy. And as we know this week, any game at this point that they lose could be the last game of Lindsay Whalen's career as a player. So be aware of that. It's good stuff. They're trying to round into form for the playoffs and get one last ring for Whalen and for a team that might look very different next year. And then Timberwolves and Wild starting into preseason. We have all of your coverage of all of that. We have all kinds of fabulous podcasts. Dane Moore's NBA show, the Vikings podcast, Tom talking about baseball sometimes, I guess.
Football Machine, yeah, Midwest Swing.
Yep, all the good stuff. So check out the network, check out the website, subscribe. We've got all this good content and all this good stuff for you. And with that, we're going to call it good for the week. Minnesota plays at Kansas City next week, where they've gotten smacked around every single time they played. So, high expectations for next week from everyone.
Uh-oh.
So, for Nic Hallett of the Takes, at Prince Hallett on Twitter, get your fire on there. Tom Schreier at TSchreier3. I am David Naylor at Prof. Cedar. This has been the Minnesota Soccer Podcast, and we will see you next week. Don't listen to it backwards.